Hello everybody, this is Rodrigo from LearnEnglishFast, and as you probably know, I'm officially Cambridge examiner for the speaking part of the test, and I have already posted over 50 videos on my YouTube channel, but today I've plucked up the courage to record a daring video which consists of a full explanation of advanced grammar which could really help you to write better in TOEFL, Cambridge and IELTS tests. For instance, if you ask students how to use present perfect tense, they'll probably tell you to use the verb to have plus past participle, which is correct. But nevertheless, when you question them about when to use this grammar topic, they might freeze or even gape at you as if you had asked them a boring question. In other words, what I'm about to show you is exactly when you should use certain grammar topics rather than just how to do it. But before we start, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, click on the button below and make sure you get all my tips for both vocabulary and grammar next time. And please ask your friends to join us as this channel is completely free of charge. So, shall we start? So, the way this is going to work, it will be a placement test for advanced students. In other words, we're starting from B2 level, which is upper intermediate students, then C1 level, which is the advanced level, and then the proficiency level, which is the C2 maximum proficiency candidates, And you are about to find your real level of English. If you want to score very high in TOEFL, IELTS or Cambridge, then this grammar placement test is for you. So let's start. Question number 1. Explain how to use present perfect tense for future situations, So even though it's mostly used for past tenses, like I have broken my leg, or referring to past, sometimes we can use present perfect tense for future situations, and it can also be used with when, as soon as, and after. For example, I can tell you, Tina asked you to call her as soon as you have arrived home. So as soon as you have arrived home, it's in the future. So you're going to call her in the future, alright? Second example, please send Eric that email after you have finished your monthly report. So in this case we use after. So please send Eric that email after you have finished your monthly report, alright? So it's not good enough to know that present perfect is have or has plus participle, which is usually the third column of the regular verbs. But in this case, we're learning exactly when to use them, alright? That's the purpose of this class, okay? When should I use them? So can I use in the past? Yes. I've recorded a video showing all the cases, like past tenses without a date and other cases. But this case is using for the future, alright? Let's see the second question. So, question number 2. What kinds of state verbs do you know? And would you use the gerund form of those verbs and why? It's a very interesting question. Usually, we know 4 different kinds of state verbs. I think the most popular one are the sense verbs. For example, the verb to see, the verb to hear, smell, taste, or hurt, when you feel, it hurts. The other common one is like emotions. For example, when you think about something, when you feel something, you forget, you remember, you like, you love, those emotions. Also the beings, for example, the verb to be, which is a state verb, verb to have, or I have to go home. Have is not an action, it's a state. Or cost, my iPhone costs $10, you know, state verb, require. He requires me to finish my homework by Friday. All state verbs. And stance, which basically sit, stand, leave, or even to face, for example, to face a problem. Those are all state verbs. So there are 4 different categories, you know. The other question was if we should use the gerund form of those verbs, and most books say that we should not. You know, there's a consensus that we should not use sentence verbs with ing. However, what I'm gonna tell you is like, yes, obviously we can use ing after any verbs that require gerund. For example, if I'm using the verb to enjoy, I'm going to say I enjoy plus ing. I cannot say I enjoy plus to infinitive. So, I enjoy thinking about life and not I enjoy to think about life. Understand? So, I can obviously use ing gerund after a verb that requires ing. Understand? For example, another verb, to admit, you know. I admit living in a very poor condition. Again, the verb to live is a state verb, but admit or admit in American English, you know, I cannot say I admit to live. It doesn't exist. So I admit living in very poor conditions. Okay, that's my answer to you. Right? Let's move on. Now, question number 3. Why would we use causatives? Well, it's basically to say that we have arranged for somebody to do something for us, so we are not doing it ourselves. For example, non-natives very often tell Americans, oh, I'm going to cut my hair. But that's not exactly what they mean, because Americans understand you're going to get a pair of scissors and do it yourself. What non-natives are trying to say is that they're going to have a haircut. Understand? So, in the causative, we can also say, for example, I had my jacket cleaned. In this case, what I mean, I paid for the service and somebody else cleaned the jacket for myself. Okay? That's the basic construction of causatives. We learned that at B2 level, but at C1 and C2 levels of English, we learn a much more complex structure involving the verb to have. I'm going to show you, for example, when we involve a third person, a third part. For example, Peter had his father do his homework. In this case, we dropped the preposition to. We omitted the preposition to. Again, Peter had his father do his homework. Or Sylvia had her mother bake the cake. However, if I use the verb to get, I cannot drop the preposition to. For example, Peter got his father to do his homework. In this case, I need to use to. Alright? And that is the causative used in a more complex structure, which we learn in C1 or C2 level of English language grammar. Okay. So, question number 4. What's a collocation? And give 4 examples using nouns, adjectives, adverbs, and verbs. So basically, collocations, they refer to how words go together to form a fixed relationship. In other words, when you see a word, you expect to see the other one. You know, there are many thousands of collocations. And grammatically speaking, there could be even more, but they sound weird. For example, if somebody spills water on your shirt, you say, oh, it's no big deal. A synonym for big is great or huge, but it's weird to say, ah, it's no huge deal, it's no gigantic deal, no enormous deal. No, the only combination there is it's no big deal. It means it's not a problem. That's the collocation, you know. Another example is like heavy rain. Some people say, oh, there's a strong rain. Grammatically speaking, that's perfect, but nobody says strong rain. Like native speakers, they say heavy rain. Understand? You can say like come quickly, in this case using the adverb, the verb and adverb together. So please come quickly. I need to do the shopping, I need to do the laundry, I need to do the dishes. I need to pay a visit to my relative. You know, I'm using all sorts of combination all together, alright? Let's see the next question. So, question number 5. What is the difference between binomial pairs and phrasal verbs? Ooh, a lot of students have difficulties differentiating binomial pairs and phrasal verbs because they're usually formed by 2 words, sometimes 3 in the case of phrasal verbs. So basically, a binomial pair is an expression like an idiom containing 2 words which are joined by a conjunction. For example, and, or, sometimes even preposition by, okay? But those words are usually fixed. For example, I say I'm sick and tired of this job. Sick and tired means I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, you know? So sick and tired is a binomial pair. Another example, this looks neat and tidy. So neat and tidy, it means very organized and clean. That's another binomial pair. I've already recorded a video with lots of binomial pairs. So if you want to get back a little bit, you're going to go to my channel and check for binomial pairs, and you're going to learn a lot of examples, okay? And what are phrasal verbs? Basically, they're made up of a main verb together with an adverb or preposition, or even both in the case of multi-word verbs. Typically, their meaning is not obvious. For example, when you see one word, you know the meaning of the word. You see the other one, you also know the meaning of the other one. But when you put the 2 together, the meaning is not obvious. You know, they have a completely different meaning. For example, look up to. To look, everybody knows that. Up, okay, looking up. And to is a preposition. But look up to, when you put all those words together, they mean to admire somebody, to respect somebody, okay? Another example, like run away. To run, you run. Away, everybody knows the meaning of away, but when you run away, you're basically escaping. It's different from just running, you're escaping, for example, from the police or from your wife, whatever, alright? So those are the main difference between a binomial pair and a phrasal verb. Great, let's have a look in the next one. Question number 6. What's the importance of learning these course markers, and which ones would you use for counter-argument? Basically, there is no speech without these course markers, because all the cohesion found on your text comes from these course markers, because those are the linking words needed to connect, to join your ideas, alright? So they're used to signpost these courses. For example, if I tell you, I want to buy a new iPhone, however, it's a little too expensive. When I say however, that's a counter-argument, because even though I want to buy the iPhone, I haven't got money for that. So I'm using a negative and a positive expression, and the link between the 2 of them is called these course markers. And why shouldn't I just call them conjunctions? Because these course markers can be formed by more than just one word. For example, however is one word, but when I say on top of that, 4 words. Okay? As far as I'm concerned, a lot of words. Okay? Regarding, 1 word. Nevertheless, 1 word. all the same 3 words. That's why we use discourse markers and not just conjunctions. Because when you say conjunctions, apparently you have to use one word to link your sentences. But when you use the term discourse markers, you can be talking about a lot of words with the functions assumed by a conjunction. Alright? So, next one. So, question number 7. What does embedding refer to in linguistics? Well, we usually learn that in C1 book, and that's the process by which one clause is included or embedded in another one. Alright? This is also known as nesting in American English. The example I prepared for you is very, very simple, but embedding can be very complex. I've already recorded a video only about embedding. You know, it's like a 20-minute video explaining all the rules. But, you know, the purpose of this class is just to answer to the questions. So, embedding, again, you're just joining sentences, you know? You include one in another one and make only one sentence. So, let me show you a very easy example. My brother opened the window. The maid had closed it. My brother opened the window, the maid had closed. You see, I used the embedding technique, so I joined 2 separate sentences into one. That's what I did. This example I used is very simple. However, there are some very complex examples, so please watch my previous video on the topic, alright? You're going to learn everything about embedding that video. Great, let's move on. So, question number 8. What does fronting refer to in English grammar? That could be tricky, because fronting refers to any kind of construction in which a word group that customarily follows the verb is placed at the beginning of a sentence. That's why fronting. You bring it from any other place in the sentence up to the front. And it can be used to express a contrast or even to organize the flow of information. Alright? For example, if I tell you, next to the window was a bookcase, instead of saying the bookcase was placed next to the window, right? Another example, on the ground floor was a bookshop. So the bookshop was located on the ground floor. You understand? So we bring it to the front, even to give it a contrast or just to organize the flow of information. So it's a great grammar topic. Usually we learn that at C1 level, but depending on the complexity, there are more examples at C2 level. And I've already recorded a whole video on the topic of fronting. So if you want to, you can just subscribe to my channel. You know, go back a few videos and I'm going to find the fronting topic, which is complex. Those examples I'm giving you here, they're very, very simple compared to how complex it can get, okay? I want to make it very easy today, but this could be complex. Let's see the next one. Now, why would you use reported speech? So why? All books teach reported speech. So basically, that's used to communicate what somebody else said, but without using the exact words. For example, when you watch the news on TV, they report what somebody else said, but they use their own words. Understand? That's why there's lots of interpretation. Okay? So if you turn on the TV on one channel, they're telling you the news using some words, and then you change the channel and they're using completely different words to say the same thing. And sometimes they can be biased. That's the problem with reported speech, you know. Usually a few changes are necessary. Often a pronoun has to be changed, and the verbs also usually moved back a tense. For example, from present simple to past simple, but where it's possible, of course. It's not always that it's possible. So, for example, Rodrigo said that he was going to come. What I infer by that is that he never showed up, he never attended, he never came. But he said he was going to come. But when he said that, he said, guys, I will go, or I will come. Then when I report to somebody else, I say, hey, Rodrigo said that he was going to come. Understand? So I'm moving tense back with the verb, I'm changing the pronouns, I'm doing some adaptation there, okay? So probably reported speech is one of the imperial subjects to be learned because we want to watch the news, we want to need to read a newspaper. So that's why it's so important, it's paramount, it's crucial, it's imperial to learn reported speech. Alright? So let's move to the next topic. So question number 10. What is the concept of inversions in English grammar? Well, I have already recorded a video explaining everything about inversions, but tonight I'm just going to answer to the question. Just stick to that. So inverted sentences switch the placement of the verb before the subject of a sentence, as if in a question. As simple as that. For example, not only is he difficult to understand, but he's also funny. In this case, I started with a negative adverb, not, and then I said, not only is he, there was an inversion there. So the verb came before the subject as if in a question, okay? If you want to learn more, just watch my inversions video, please. I teach everything about that topic. Another example, never have I understood less about women. So, in other words, I have never understood less, but I inverted that. Never have I understood. Why would I do that? Just to give emphasis to my adverb, never. You know, I'm like forcing you to understand that never have I, never did I, never had I, you know. There's so many different types of inversions and we learn all of them in books C1 and C2. So the easy inversions we start learning at C1 level and the very complex ones at C2, okay? Another example, scarcely have they been on time. In other words, it is rare for them to be on time, okay? But scarcely have they been on time. So I'm mixing here the present perfect tense with scarcely, which basically means rarely, hardly, alright? Great! So, let's move on. So, the next question is, what is the difference between subordinate clauses and coordinate clauses? Well, every TOEFL and IELTS candidate should know that because otherwise you wouldn't be able to write a perfect essay, you know. So subordinate clauses, they are dependent clauses. In other words, it cannot exist without the main clause. For example, if I tell you, John is notorious for his lack of punctuality. Okay? And then I tell you, for his lack of punctuality. You look at him and say, huh? What do you mean by his lack of punctuality? No, Lucas is notorious for his lack of punctuality. So for his lack of punctuality depends on the main sentence, which is Lucas is notorious. In this case, we call it a subordinate clause, a dependent clause, alright? As for coordinate clauses, they are completely independent clauses, alright? For example, I can tell you like, Mary went to the bank and Steve stayed at home. So Mary went to the bank, that's one thing. Steve stayed at home, that's another thing. So they're completely separate sentences. They both have a meaning separately. They don't depend on each other, and in this case, they're called coordinate clauses. I'm not going to give you more details here, but at C2 level, we learned a lot of different types of coordinate clauses as well. Synthetic, asynthetic, and etc. etc. Okay? And as for subordinate clauses, we usually learn 3 different types. We learn the adverbial subordinate clauses, adjective subordinate clauses, and noun subordinate clauses. So basically the emphasis are given into different words in a sentence, okay? Just to remind you, I've already recorded an adverbial subordinate clauses video. I've already recorded adjective subordinate clauses and a noun subordinate clauses in details like 3 weeks ago, and I've already posted on YouTube. So if you want to learn in details all those topics, they're all there. And again, why should I use that? What for? Why would I waste my time? It's not wasting, it's an investment. You're going to learn how to build your sentence to perfection. You know, when you write a text, an article, you reveal a proposal, a lesson, or, I don't know, a blog, anything you write, then you know exactly the order of the words, the adverbials. If that has to go in the beginning of the sentence, if it goes in the middle, or if it goes after a comma, after a full stop, in the end of a sentence. That's why we learn that. You understand? So how can you want, how can you wish, how can you desire to score 120 points at TOEFL IBT if you do not know the difference between subordinate clauses and coordinate clauses? If you do not know the difference between adverbial clauses and adjective clauses? Because that's paramount. That's the minimum to learn in order to write perfectly. So please do your homework, alright? So let's move. Question number 12. What kind of adverbs have different meanings when their position in the sentence is changed? And give one example. That's a difficult question. That's very tricky. Let's read again. What kind of adverbs? Well, we know there are many different kinds, like frequency, manner, time, etc., etc., etc. What kind of adverbs have different meanings when their position in the sentence is changed? And give one example. Well, basically, some manner adverbs. You know that verbs that end with ly, manner adverbs? They can have different meanings if they change positions in a sentence. Let me give an example. Strangely, Kate speaks Chinese. In other words, to my surprise, Kate speaks Chinese. So this strangely means to my surprise. Again, strangely, Kate speaks Chinese. Let me change the order now. Kate speaks Chinese strangely. Now I'm talking about the way she speaks Chinese. She speaks it badly or horribly, you know? Kate speaks Chinese strangely. In other words, Kate speaks Chinese badly. Kate speaks Chinese horribly. She doesn't know how to speak Chinese language. You understand? So with manner adverbs, when I move positions, I change the meaning of the sentence completely. That's why it's so important to know exactly what you're doing. You know, grammar topics aren't for the faint at heart. You understand? What I mean by that is you have to study really hard, to put on a lot of hours on your studies, and to really truly understand what you're doing. You know, some people, they just learn the technicalities, you know, like they know that present perfect is okay, it's have plus past participle. That's it. Oh, report the speech, if it's present, it becomes past. Okay, but when should I use it? What am I doing? Why? You understand that? So what I'm showing you, those are called golden tips. Okay, I'm showing you exactly when to use, why you're using, and exactly how to apply in a sentence. So I'm giving you everything you need. Alright? That's the difference. Great, let's move. Now, question number 13. That's a long question, isn't it? So, explain how we could use past tenses of future forms to emphasize our plans and predictions that we had at a point in the past. Let's read that again. That's tricky. Explain how could you use past tenses of future forms to emphasize our plans and predictions that we had at a point in the past. That's C2 level of English. That's the most complex level of grammar. Because you have to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Join, like, you have to put yourself in the past. You have to imagine the future of that person who was in the past and predict what could have happened in the future, but from the past, not from today. Again, let me explain that again. I'm going to talk very slowly because the aim here is to make it very clear, is to teach you, alright? You're going to put yourself on somebody else's shoes. In other words, you're going to imagine you are that person in the past. Then, you're going to imagine what could have happened to the future of that person in the past. You could predict what could have happened or what could not have happened. But from that point in the past, not from today. Today is irrelevant. Alright? That's the question. I have to explain how we could use past tenses of future forms. And basically we need to give the emphasis to that. So, I know 3 ways. If you guys know more ways, please just leave a comment, okay, on my video. One way that I know of doing that is to use to be about to. Alright? As an example, Claire was about to get on the plane when she got an urgent text message from her boss asking her to return. So, put yourself in Claire's shoes. You're Claire, you're about to get on the plane, but then she received a message from her boss. So she hasn't got on the train. She had to return to the company. So her future was to get on the plane. You understand? But she's never got on the plane. So basically, she went back to the company to talk to her boss because she has received an urgent message. So her future was changed. Not her future from today, but her future from that time. I didn't say the date, but it could have happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago, or yesterday. We haven't said when that happened. But there was a future plan seen from the past. Okay? The second way you can say the same thing is be going to. For example, last summer I was going to visit my sister, but I went to London instead. So my sister lives in Italy. Last summer I was going to visit my sister. So in the past I had a future plan. My future plan was to visit my sister in Italy. However, nonetheless, all the same. But I decided to go to London instead. So I changed my plan and I didn't visit my sister in Italy. I went to London. So again, I put myself in the past, I predicted the future from that past, and I changed the future of that past tense. So today is irrelevant because all of that has already happened. I went to London, I didn't go to Italy. Do you know what I mean? So that's great grammar. And the last way that I know of using that is the verb to be plus a verb with ing, the gerund form of verbs. For example, I was leaving for Paris that morning and I was worried about the long flight. So, before I went to Paris, I was leaving for Paris, I was on my way to Paris. And I predicted that the flight would be long, tiresome or tiring, whatever. And that was my prediction for the future about that past situation, not about today. Again, today is completely irrelevant, okay? That's what would have happened in the future. The flight would have been very long, and the flight would have gotten me very tired. It was a tiring trip. Do you understand? So that's a complex grammar that we use in C2 level of English. So not only should advanced teachers, not only should advanced students learn that, but also teachers. Because you need to have this kind of material in order to write great essays. You know, compositions, letters, reviews, proposals, articles, reports, blogs, whatever you're asked to write. Okay? So, let's move on. Now, question number 14. Why would you use a participle clause as adverbs? Okay, let's read that again. Why would you use a participle clause as adverbs? So we know that usually participle clauses, they say why, when, how, or even where things happen. That's what participle clauses do. And we use them as adverbials in formal language and again writing. And it usually comes before the main verb in order to give emphasis to the sentence. It's all about giving emphasis to the sentence. Have you noticed that? Okay? So again, let me explain that again. We say why, when, where, and how things happen. So in order to do that, we use adverbials in formal language, not informal. And usually in writing, when you're writing your essays. So we use that before the main verb in order to give the emphasis to the sentence. Let me give you some examples. They're a little bit weird, but they're common in writing. For example, frightened by what he saw, he never returned. In spoken language, I would have said, he never returned because he got frightened of what he saw. But they don't say that in writing. That sounds very amateur. Okay? So again, frightened by what he saw, he never returned. Another example. Left by themselves, children can get hurt. Again, left by themselves, children can get hurt. So, children can get hurt if they are left by themselves, because you know what children do when they are alone. But in writing, it has to be more formal. It has to be professional, right? For example, if you're writing a report for a boss, you work for a multinational, your email has to be perfect, like left by themselves, children can get hurt. That's why we have implemented this or that policy, this or that norm. Okay? So that's a great way of using participle clause as adverbs. Great. Let's move on. Question number 15. What kinds of verbs are often used for speculation and deduction? Well, I can tell you it's mostly modal verbs and sometimes auxiliary verbs, okay? When you want to speculate something, it means we're not sure of something. We're just deducting, we're imagining, we're wondering, but we're not 100% sure. We use modal verbs. For example, I must have left my keys at home because they're not here with me and I'm not sure where I left them. But I must have left them at home. Perhaps, I don't know, on the desk, perhaps in my office, perhaps, I don't know, by the TV. You know, I'm speculating. That's what I'm doing. Okay? Another example. It's already 6 p.m. They should have arrived by now, so I'm concerned. Because every day, they arrive by 5 p.m. I know it's already 6 p.m. So they should have arrived by now. What am I doing? I'm deducting. This is called deduction, you know, analytical reasoning. Every day you know what time your children arrive, and today they're not here by the time they're supposed to be. Again, speculation and deduction. Another example, we can spend the whole time here, you know, just exemplifying things, but I don't mind, I love this. So, let's see. Joseph didn't answer his phone. He must have been in the shower. So, I'm deducting if he hasn't answered the phone, it's because he was having a shower. So I'm deducting that. Again, you know, I'm using must have been. So I'm using modal verbs. Okay? I'm not gonna get into details like modal plus have plus third column or participle, because I have already posted a video teaching all of that. So all the topics you see here, I have already arranged and posted videos explaining all the details. Today, I'm just answering a placement test. For example, if I went to a school in England and the school gave me like, this is the placement test to see if you're good enough to teach here. That's basically what I'm doing. So am I good enough to teach in your school? Yes. I know all the answers. So, I'm not being very modest now, am I? But seriously, that's exactly what I'm doing here. This is a placement test to see if we know exactly why we use this topic, why we use this grammar. So usually people, they learn like by repetition. They repeat as parrots, you know, bird, parrot. In my case, as far as I'm concerned, I love to know exactly why I do things, why I do my stuff. So I have to know why, when, then I learn the technicalities. I'm not the kind of person who accepts an answer like, no, that's because we speak like that, because we're natives and that's how we do it. I don't give a damn to how you do it. I want to know why. So I need to learn, I have to study, I have to prepare myself to know exactly why. So when I'm writing an essay, or a piece of report, writing, anything, I know what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, why I'm doing that, and then obviously my choice of words, but this is for other classes. Today, we're only discussing grammar topics. We're not gonna get into vocabulary, okay? So let's move on. So, question number 16. What is a cleft sentence? And give some examples. So that's another C1 topic. Well, basically, a cleft sentence is used to point out, to emphasize, or even to correct pieces of information. But in order to do that, we form a focusing phrase ending in the verb be at the beginning of the sentence. Is it complex? Again, we form a focusing phrase ending in the verb be, which will start the next sentence. For example, when I tell you, what's amazing is that nobody found out the truth. So the verb to be obviously has certain flexibility. It could be is, was, were, you know, you can vary the verb to be. So again, what's amazing is that nobody found out the truth. So there is this little gap between the verb to be is and all the rest of the sentence, okay? What I suggested was out of question, okay? What I suggested was out of question. So I just don't read like, what I suggested was out of question, like a robot. No. When you use cleft sentences, you need to give emphasis to verb to be, okay? The next thing to do is don't touch the food and make sure that all the cutlery is clean. Alright? So the verb to be is very emphatic. Okay? What she basically told me was turn off the computer and make sure I set off the alarm. Okay? What else? I'm just trying to think of examples. There are so many. I could spend a long time giving you some examples here. What he told me to do was keep myself at home because it isn't the end of the world, right? So those are cleft sentences. We are pointing out, we are emphasizing, we are even correcting information. We are using the verb to be at the ending of this focusing sentence, and we are beginning a new one after a gap. That's what we're doing. Cleft sentence, guys. Learn that, please. Next. Say, question 17. What is the purpose of using inverted conditionals? Again, inverted conditionals. Not first conditional, zero conditional, second conditional, third conditional, mixed conditional, no. Inverted conditionals. And which words are used to replace the conjunction if? Well, the question is already telling us we are not allowed to use if. It is a conditional, but we cannot use if. So, usually inverted conditionals are used to give emphasis as usual, but in this case, the subject of the sentence, not the object. And in this case, we can replace the conjunction if by three other words. Were, which is the verb to be in the past plural form. Should, which is a modal verb. And had. I'm going to show you some examples. For example, were I to study in a private school in America, I would have chosen Harvard, or Stanford, or Yale. Actually, I would have a lot of different choices, great choices, you know. In this case, I didn't use if. If I had to choose, no. Were I to choose, were I to study. You understand that? So we drop if and we invert. So were I to study. So why do I say that? Because I'm talking about myself, the subject. I am the emphasis. So were I to choose what to eat, I would pick the risotto. But as it's not on me tonight, I will have to eat whatever they put on the table. You know? So were it for my decision, I wouldn't have this meeting today. Again, what I'm saying to you, this is not my call. This is not my decision. I have no empowerment. So I have to just accept it, you know? Were I to decide where to live, I would pick Beverly Hills. It's not up to me. I haven't got the money. I haven't got the cash. I don't have this power. I can't afford it. Do you know what I mean? So those are inverted sentences. And now I'm going to show you an example with had. I can give you a million sentences, but like, had I known about her health conditions, I wouldn't have offered her neat whiskey. In other words, I didn't know she had a bad health, and I offered her pure whiskey, because that's my favorite. But had I known about her health conditions, I wouldn't have offered her a glass of neat whiskey, you know, cowboy whiskey. Understand that? So had I known, why would I say that? Because I want to focus on myself. Had I known, had I seen that, were I to decide anything, Understand? It's the emphasis on the subject of the sentence. That's why. So that's a great thing to learn. C1, C2. It depends on how complex you want to get. It can get much more complex than that. It's just a hint, a little bit of how complex it can get. Alright? For some reason, it's easy to me. Alright? Let's continue. 18. How can reciprocal pronouns be used? Let me read that again. How can reciprocal pronouns be used? Oh, reciprocal pronouns, of course. From one person to another person. So reciprocal, right? I got it. So basically they're formed by two main phrases. We use each other and one another. Again, each other or one another. Okay? However, they can only be used with plural subjects. We don't use those with singular. It has to be used with plural. For example, we always speak to each other with respect. We, it's plural, right? We, both of us. So we always speak to each other with respect. Another example, they greeted one another before addressing the room. I'm being very formal right now, okay? I love the formal level of English. So they greeted one another before addressing the room, okay? The purpose of this session is to listen to one another problems like sympathetically. That's very posh. I love that. So again, let me repeat that. The purpose of this session is to listen to one another problems sympathetically. Alright? In this case, I'm just saying that the purpose is to listen to each other or to one another in a very nice way, like in an understanding way, sympathetically. It has nothing to do with nice. I think I've made a mistake there. Because sympathetic is just showing that you worry about other people, you know, that you're concerned about the others, you care about others. You're not just being nice, like, haha, and giving a great smile, nothing like that. So being sympathetic is like, oh, please tell me your problems. I want to listen to that. I want to help you. No, that's the meaning of being sympathetic, okay? It's nothing to do with being just nice and happy and, you know, hello, how are you? That's nice. That's not sympathetic. Sympathetic's, okay, I'm worried about your problems. Please tell me, let me listen. What do you have to say? Let me see if I can help. You know, you dedicate yourself to another person. That's what it means, okay? Great, let's move on. Now, question 19. What is ellipsis in English grammar? And which pronouns are used to substitute noun phrases? So I have already recorded a class on ellipses. I remember, like a 20-minute class explaining all sorts of ellipses. So usually we start learning that at the beginning of C1 level, but we finish learning that at C2. It could be very advanced. There are many different examples in ellipses, but basically it's the avoidance of repeated ideas in a sentence. You don't want to repeat yourself. That's basically what it means, you know. So you can avoid this repetition by either leaving out words and phrases or just replacing them, you know. For example, my daughter has spent a lot of money, but on superfluous things. The way I said it to you, I already used ellipses. Because another person could have said, my daughter has spent a lot of money, but my daughter has only bought superfluous things. Because the person doesn't know how to avoid repetition, so she repeats like, my daughter blah blah blah, my daughter blah blah blah, my daughter blah blah blah. Understand? Let me repeat that again. My daughter has spent a lot of money, but my daughter has only bought superfluous things. When you use ellipses, You avoid all this repetition, all these ideas, these words. You don't want to repeat anything. So basically say, my daughter has spent a lot of money buying superfluous things. That's it. Okay? Problem solved. Now, the question was also which pronouns are used to substitute or to replace noun phrases. As I remember, usually in ellipses we use one and once. And sometimes we use that. It's a bit confusing because that could be either a conjunction, it could be a determiner, or it could be a pronoun. I'm not going to talk very deeply, very profoundly about the word that, because I have already recorded a video about that. But again, that could be a pronoun, that could be a conjunction, and that could be a determiner. But when that's a pronoun, we can use it in ellipses. So let's see some examples. One, ones, and that. For example, there are 10 different colors to choose from. Which ones do you want? Without the ellipses, I would have asked you, there are 10 different colors to choose from. Which color do you want? Or which colors do you want? So I don't want to repeat the word colors, so I just say, which ones do you want? That's ellipses. We avoided repetition. Obviously, the examples I'm giving here, they're very simple, very basic. But this class is not aimed to teach you how to use ellipses, because that will take another half an hour. So you're going to watch my video and you will learn everything on ellipses, okay? Second example. Don't ever interrupt me. I hate that. This that is not a conjunction because it's not linking anything. It's not a determiner. This that is a pronoun. I hate what? I hate the interruption. So that is a pronoun. So don't interrupt me. I hate that you interrupt me. I don't want this repetition, so I say, don't interrupt me. I hate that. That's ellipsis. So I avoided the repetition of a whole sentence. That's an amazing resource, an amazing feature to use in English grammar language, alright? And let's see the final question. Ta-da-da-da! Question number 20. When should you use passive reporting verbs? Give 2 examples using that clauses. Let me read it again. When should you use passive reporting verbs and give 2 examples using that clauses? So there are 3 grammar topics altogether. First is passive. The second topic is reporting verbs. Okay, that's a slight difference there. And give 2 examples using that clauses, which is a third grammar topic. Alright, so let's try that one. Passive reporting verbs are used when you are basically generalizing what people say or generalizing what people think. You know? In the case of that clauses, I can point out some examples. We must use that, right? For example, in the report it was implied that corruption was involved. Again, let me repeat it. In the report, it was implied that corruption was involved. Okay? Another example. It's argued that Newton was one of the brightest men in history. I don't argue that. To me, he was. Maybe Da Vinci. I don't know. Again, it's argued that Newton was one of the brightest men in history. Okay, so when should we use passive reporting verbs? We use passive reporting verbs when we want to generalize what people say. We can also use it when we generalize what people think. And they asked 2 examples, I gave 2. The first one was about the corruption things, right? Like in the report, it was implied that corruption was involved. And it's argued that Newton was the brightest man in history. Again, I don't argue that, but Da Vinci could be, probably the brightest mind in history. I don't know. Anyway, guys, I really hope you've enjoyed this class. This was like a very difficult placement test, grammar placement test. Because in this case, I'm not giving a sentence and asking, okay, which one is reported speech? Which one is if clause? Convert, blah, blah, blah. No. I'm asking you how to use them. Why would you use them? Understand? So that's what it's all about. I'm teaching you deeply, profoundly, exactly how to use grammar tenses. So I really would like to say thank you for everything, for being with me tonight. I have to say thanks to the University of Cambridge, who always make available. So this is the end of a great class. I'm overjoyed, I'm on cloud 9 for having this opportunity to teach such complex grammar to all of you. I gotta remind you, I'm a non-native teacher. I'm from Brazil. And obviously, for a non-native teacher to teach all this material involves a lot of dedication, I put my heart in there, I put all of me. And I hope that you are understanding enough to know that we can only learn so much, But this is what I do. I teach students who really, really thrive for success and they really want an international certification. So, in the case of this class, not only did you learn to point out, oh, this is an if clause, this is reported speech, this is embedding, this is front, no. You've learned exactly how to use them, when you should use them, why on earth you should use them. So now you know profoundly exactly how to use your grammar, but please don't ever stop studying. You have to apply all this knowledge into your next essay. So before writing a report, before writing an essay, before writing a proposal, a letter, a review, anything, a blog, a manifest, whatever you write, please think carefully on the constructions, on the structure, because I've given you everything. You have all the tools needed to write perfectly. So I really appreciate your time with me. I loved it. It was super hard to record today because there are lots of cars in the street. I haven't got money for a proper studio. I can't afford a professional place. I can't afford a microphone. I'm recording by using, the simplest camera you can think of. Like, it's just a computer with no microphone and it's super difficult, But again, I love what I do. I'm a teacher. If you have any comments to make, any positive criticism, please let it be positive, have some appreciation. Then please leave your comments below and I promise I will answer to you at my earliest convenience. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Cheers. See you next time and invite your friends, alright? Invite your friends. Let's expand this channel and make sure that next time you're gonna have a lot of your friends all together learning how to get approved at TOEFL, scoring 120, at IELTS scoring a 9, and at Cambridge proficiency level. That's what the site is all about. Free of charge. Again, free of charge. Thank you. Bye-bye.